everyone. My name is Joseph De Benedetto, acting president for CEC for District 25. We welcome everyone and we thank you for joining us this evening. Before we get started, we're going to do some housework here and ask for the roll call. Holly, the meeting's being recorded, right?
Yes. Joseph De Benedetto.
Present.
Wing Yu.
Present.
Anne-Marie Knable. Joseph Chow is not here yet. Sung Young Lee. Shirley.
Present.
Rashmi Krishnaraj.
Present. You heard me? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, okay. I think I can't hear Carly. Maybe.
Michelle here.
No, Joe, she's not in yet. I didn't see her.
So we do have quorum for the evening, so that's a good thing. I'd ask the members to review the minutes for our January meeting and ask for consensus on approving the minutes. You putting the minutes on the screen?
Yes, Joe. Yes. There she is. Yes.
Okay, so if we have consensus to approve the minutes for our January meeting, I'd like to move on. We have consensus. Anybody object to it? Okay, so the meeting minutes for January are deemed approved. So I'd like to welcome everyone once again, and I'd like to introduce to you and welcome Christina Mendez, who is our new Executive Director of FACE. We appreciate with all members of FACE that you are here this evening, and it's nice to see you. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Mendez. And why don't we just start with your introduction? And again, we thank you for joining us. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely okay with
Perfect.
that. Thank you so much for inviting me. CEC 25 is my first CEC visit, so I'm really excited to be making my rounds and starting at CEC 25. So thank you for that. A little bit about me. My name is Dr. Christina Mendez. I am the new Executive Director of FACE, or as some of my friends at the DOE like to say, I'm the new face of FACE. And I'm really excited about that. I am probably I'm a very unique FACE representative. My history comes from a whole lot of work at the DOE. I've been a teacher, mostly in the bilingual dual language space. I've been able to be an educator in all three divisions. So I've been an educator in the elementary, middle, and high school, which is a rare occurrence for educators, right? Usually you go in and you stay on your track. So I've been lucky enough to be able to do that. I've also been a teacher coach during the network and the Bloomberg days. I was a coach, I was a teacher of teachers, helping teachers sort of take some of the lessons I learned on the field and develop and grow their own skill set. And then after that, I was a school building administrator, and I've also been a district administrator. Most of my work has been committed to schools that we call our failing schools or low performing schools. I like to call them hopeful spaces, and I consider myself a transformational leader. I really enjoy to go into spaces where many have sort of given up on or thought that this wasn't going anywhere. and really coming up with ideas from the ground up. Folks that have been in these spaces always know better. And so just lifting their voices has been a very powerful experience in my career. I took some time away from the DOE to do my doctorate, where I spent all of that time just focusing on understanding parenting, right? After 15 years in the Department of Education, I felt like my purpose to make the system better, I hadn't fulfilled it. The impact that I thought I wanted to make at 22 when I started, I didn't feel it. I didn't see it. Yes, I made tons of impact in my students' lives and in some of the school leaders that I was able to support throughout the years, but I wanted more. And I realized that it is in the parents' work that we can get so much done, that parents are extremely powerful, that their voice is very important, and that is where I wanted to spend the rest of my professional time. So I spent a lot of time researching parenting practices, researching parents and their voice, how to empower, how to engage. And so when the opportunity came up under this new administration, I said, this is the only place I could be of use. And it worked out, and they agreed. And so here I am. I come to you with a real commitment to not just me, but the administration at large is really committed to creating this authentic voice of parents, that it's not just lip service, that we say that often, that we have said that often as the Department of Education, but you have in me someone who fully understands that from a researcher, someone who understands it from the educator's perspective. And I'm really excited to do just that. Plus, I'm a mom to 2 girls, a 15-year-old. I hope some of you have a moment and can pray for me. And a 9-year-old who's still not in whatever phase we are in. And so I'm just humbled by just knowing how much time and energy you are all committed to spending on making the system better, on supporting other parents. I am humbled by the service you have already given and the service and time that you continue to give to make our system better. And I know it's not always, doesn't always end up the way you want, but I know that this administration and Christina are very much committed to really understanding, to really hearing your voices, to really being at the table with you and not bringing you to the table to tell you things. That's something that the chancellor, if you've heard him speak, has already said. Those are my marching orders, but they're also my true commitment that I know, just like I've known in all the schools I've ever helped make better, you already know. There's a lot you know, and I just need to make sure that I have the systems in place, the people in place, so that we can hear exactly what you're saying, so that we can understand each other, because your expertise as parents who know their children, know their communities, is invaluable to us. And not listening hasn't gotten us anywhere faster or better. So we're committed. I'm excited. I'm thrilled to be here with you all. And I'm grateful to be in your presence and look forward to being in communication with all of you.
Dr. Melendez, that was wonderful. That is exactly the reason why I do what I do and most of the CEC members do what they do and why they're here. So it's good to hear it from you. We're excited to reconnect with FACE and hopefully have a successful term with FACE. So I'm looking forward to working with you and we welcome you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm gonna need you all. So this is the first of many, many conversations.
Wonderful, wonderful. I don't know if any other CEC members want to make any welcoming comments to Dr. Melendez, but this is your time. Are the CEC members unmuted? Okay, so Dr. Melendez, I know, I mean, I don't want to jump right into the issues, but we will definitely connect. I can tell you from the start that we are waiting for some borough appointees, borough president appointees that we've been asking for quite a few months now. So that is one very pressing matter. We do have 7 or 8 members, but we are missing 2 of the appointees, and some other districts have them and we don't. I know that we have some applications that are in. I'm not sure if they're vetted or not, but we haven't gotten a result, and that's something that we will start off with.
Yeah, I don't know how far I can get with that one, but I appreciate that you have put in some questions on your end and pushed the envelope a little. I know someone on our team who's also new, Mark Traeger. He does our intergovernmental relations work, and I'm positive that he can have a conversation and see how much closer we are, and I can get back to you on that. But I know that he's got some real relationships that I'm hoping to leverage to get more clarity around this for you.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm seeing that it's hard. I'm hoping that everybody can hear me. The mic is on. Dr. Melendez, once again, welcome to the FACE team, and we're excited to be working with you and your team. So we have a pretty busy schedule this evening. I wanted to just make a couple of comments about our last month's meeting because I thought it was very successful. We had our SCA meeting where we as a CEC had put forth our recommendations for capital improvements to SCA, and we had nice feedback from members of the community, including our very own student member, Catherine Pappas, who had commented something about IS 25. And I want to tell you that, you know, these past few weeks, SCA has been on, and they are addressing the issue at IS 25 immediately. So I'm told that they're working on it. They'll start it this week. They reported to the superintendent and myself. So that's exciting stuff, which means even though it may not be on one of our items set forth to the recommendations to SCA, they are always attentive to our needs. And I would encourage the community to let the CEC know if there are any issues with any of the schools, and we'll do what we can with the help of the superintendent and the district office to make those improvements. So I want to thank everyone who participated last month. And at this time, I'm going to introduce to you our superintendent for our superintendent's report before we get on to our 2 presentations, which deal with school safety and MTSS Queensborough North special needs. And here is our superintendent, Danielle DeMango.
Thank you very much, Joe, and welcome, Dr. Melendez. I'm so excited that your first visit was to District 25, because we are an amazing district with some amazing parent leaders, and we are really looking forward to working with you. I was also really excited to hear that you have experience in bilingual education, because that is what makes us stand out from the rest as a district. We have many bilingual and dual language programs in District 25, Korean, Chinese, Spanish. So I'm looking forward to meeting with you and talking with you so you can maybe set up some time to come to our district and see some of the work that we do here. So welcome, very excited to work with you. After my presentation, I know we have 2 really exciting presentations today, and I want to thank OSID as well as the borough office. But I also want to thank Anne Marie and her special education subcommittee, because I think it's really exciting what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm sorry, I can't do this, which is MTSS through the lens of parents, right? I think we hear a lot of acronyms around the work that we're doing. And Andrea, I want to thank you for really talking to us about the concerns that you're hearing from families about learning gaps and learning lags that may have been brought out by the pandemic, and that parents feel the only way that they can get their students the support they need is through the referral process. So as our district goals are around disrupting certain things, I was really happy to hear that we want to talk about how we can engage in disrupting these learning lags prior to that process and really getting parents to understand what that looks like across our schools so parents can ask the questions necessary to make sure that students are getting the supports that they need prior to that process. So I want to say thank you for that, for doing that on behalf of parents. Okay, so here we go, Louis. First, I want to wish all of our families a happy Lunar New Year 2022. Welcome to the Year of the Tiger, and wishing you and your loved ones a happy and prosperous new year. I'm also excited to say that February is Black History Month, and our work on equity and culturally responsive and sustaining activities has really transformed some of the tasks and the work that we're doing across all of our schools. So I'm very excited to present that throughout the month and at our next CEC meeting. Next, happening now in enrollment. The middle school and high school applications are both now open, and the deadline to apply is March 1st, 2022. And we as a district are meeting monthly with all of our guidance counselors. Please feel free to reach out to any of your guidance counselors at any point regarding the application process for supports. But additionally, you can also call your school's parent coordinators. The registration period for LaGuardia High School auditions is also open. Register by March 1st to audition for programs at this specialized high school. The kindergarten application is now closed, but if you have a child born in 2017 and missed the deadline, you can still participate in admissions. Add yourself to program waitlists today with your myschools.nyc accounts. 3K and pre-K enrollment is coming soon, and we are really excited. We continue to expand our 3K pre-K programs. Set up your MySchools account today. With MySchools, you can explore your child's school options, apply during application periods, and get offer information for next year all in one place. Students who took the SHSAT in December 2021 will receive their results, including any offers to the 8 testing specialized high schools in April 2022. We're also really excited to talk about the new DIIT support hub tile available in NYSCA. Families will be able to access the DIIT help desk via the new support hub tile in their New York City schools accounts. Through the support hub, families will be able to open tickets to troubleshoot issues related to requesting repairs for DOE loan technology such as iPads, iLearn, passwords reset, NYSCA access, and more. In addition, the support hub includes the digital chatbot assistant, EVA, Education Virtual Assistant, which allows families to receive immediate responses to technical questions without the need to submit a DIIT ticket. So use your NYSCA accounts today. Okay, so next, school COVID-19 policy updates. Louis, when do you put the flow chart up at the end? Yes?
It's after the update.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Increased in-school surveillance testing. The New York City DOE is increasing the number of students who will be included in the city's in-school random surveillance testing program. Beginning on February 7th, schools will test the larger of either 10% of the school's student enrollment in grades 1 through 12 up to a cap of 250 students, or 20% of the school's unvaccinated student population. This change allows schools with highly vaccinated student populations to test a larger group of students with COVID-19 testing consents every week. So families, please make sure that your testing consents are in. Additionally, 10% of staff continue to be able to get tested weekly. Home test kits. Home test kit distribution and COVID-19
look at the
testing.
screen.
Oh, did I miss something?
No, well, you didn't
Oh,
print it.
flow chart, okay. Thank you. We've been receiving many questions that parents have had around guidance about what can happen in schools if your child is not feeling well. So if you log into the new DOE website, there is COVID-19 guidance for families that I actually found very helpful today. So it tells you what to do if your child feels sick, yes or no. If your child tests positive and what you should do, you need to continue to go down. And if your child was exposed at school and if you have a home test kit, yes or no. And if your child was exposed to COVID-19 outside of school activities. So I encourage all families to make reference to these flow charts if you have any questions. And as always, you can call your school and parent coordinator for supports. Okay, next.
Go ahead.
Okay, school COVID-19, home test kits. Home test kit distribution and COVID-19 testing before returning on February 28th. Prior to midwinter break, at-home rapid test kits will be distributed to all school staff and students in grades 3K through 12 during the week of February 14th. To keep our school community safe when we return to school buildings, we strongly encourage all staff and students to take these tests before returning to school on February 28th, regardless of their vaccination status. Staff and students are not required to show proof of a negative result test before being allowed to return to school. Students who test positive for COVID-19 and are isolating at home will be provided asynchronous remote instruction and access to office hours with a teacher. Students participating in asynchronous remote instruction may be marked present only when isolating consistent with health guidance due to a positive COVID-19 test result. Students who are absent for reasons other than a positive COVID-19 test or school building closure will be marked absent. Next is celebrating our schools. Congratulations to Dr. Mary McDonald on her retirement, and we welcome Janice Egan as the new interim acting principal at PS 209. Congratulations also to Aiden Tai, an 8th grader at 25Q194 for winning the Queen's North Spelling Bee. Good luck at the citywide spelling bee, Aiden. And just a couple of really exciting things that have happened over the past few weeks. PS 79 held a word parade using the book of the month, I Am a Word Collector. And we love our CRSC work at PS 242, where students, our first graders, spend time exploring the countries that they are from and explaining what they have learned to their colleagues and their peers, and also creating the wall that we see called Love the Skin You're In. So thank you, PS 242, for your work. As well as, and I had an opportunity to meet these wonderful, wonderful students, our equity ambassadors at Bell Academy, who have created the 2 murals. When you enter the school, it asks you to look in the mirror and what do you see, and talk about who you are as a person and what you value about yourself. And then there is also the diversity wall across the way, which celebrates the countries that all of the children are from across the school. So thank you, Bell Academy, for the work that you've done, and our equity ambassadors for leading this work. And that is it for me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Superintendent. Does anyone on the council have any questions for our superintendent?
May I just say something?
Go ahead, Mr. Chow.
My children go to 79, they had a great time.
Oh, good.
Good evening. My children go to 79. They had a great time at the work parade. Thank you.
Very nice. Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to now present to you our next school safety presentation. We have Jay Finley here and Judy Arroyo. Welcome. You should be able to come. You're not present. Okay, so you're here for any questions regarding school safety, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Perfect.
We
Okay.
were
Understood.
unsure.
So-
Yeah, we were unsure if the group or attendees had questions, and we always want to be here and available to answer those and provide some guidance. And certainly if there are none right now, we remain ready and available to follow
Cool.
that come up thereafter.
Mr. Finley, thank you. So I'm going to start with a couple of comments that were made during our school construction discussions last month. And there were a lot of questions regarding surveillance cameras in the schools. And we were told that there's some type of project that's being, or it's already been being handled. Do you have any comments on that?
So I first want to just ask if our division's Chief Information Officer, Robert Weiner, is able to be with
Yeah,
us. Robert, are you on?
I'm here. I'm actually the Chief Operating Officer. I'm present.
Oh, there you go.
I'm going to turn my video because I'm probably, this question is really one I should handle.
You got it.
Okay,
Robert,
Mr.
it's all
Weiner,
yours.
thank you.
First of all, it's honor to be here with everyone this evening, with the head of FACE and our superintendent and the panel members and my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Finling and Ms. Nunez. I'm Robert Weiner. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, Office of Safety and Youth Development. We have a capital improvement program for video surveillance, digital video surveillance. We've actually, and I've been around quite a while, so I've been with this program from the start, but we started this program we had some pilots, but we started in earnest in fiscal year 2005 with the capital plan from 2005, 2009. So we're now about 17 years into the program, and we have 789 school buildings that have the digital video surveillance system. And, we have more than 1,000 schools in those buildings using the systems. There's over 34,000 cameras online. And since that time, all video surveillance installations in our schools are done through that capital program. The program is implemented by the School Construction Authority. And when the systems are done, they're turned over to DOE's DIT, Instructional Information Technology. They are the division that assesses the systems, make sure they were installed properly, up to spec, up to standards, and then they take over and maintain them and provide comprehensive technical support. All these systems are network-based. There are systems in place where the schools request video evidence, and DIT preserves the evidence and sends it to them. This has been a very successful program. So we have currently a capital program in the current capital plan, which is from 2020, 2024, to continue with this, both to provide the system to more schools and sites that don't have it, and also to do upgrades for some of the older installations. As one would understand that with all technology, it only has limited lifespan. So the buildings that were installed in the early years of program, their systems have already reached the end of their life and have to be replaced. So we did hit a road bump with the pandemic, essentially all capital projects that weren't related to the pandemic response directly were stopped, halted, and then after project started to resume, we had to get authorization from the mayor's office of management budget to access the money to continue launching projects. And we got that approval just recently in December of 2021. So we had a pause of initiating projects for more than a year and a half, almost 2 years, like a year and 3/4. So that did slow the momentum quite a bit. But but we are going ahead with the capital program now. We recently got the go-ahead in December on some of the projects that had been promised a couple years prior to go ahead. So the SAA is currently finishing those designs and turning out those jobs for bid. And we hope shortly to be trying to get approval, we hope shortly be in position to get approval to launch additional projects so that we can bring this technology to more sites.
Do we know what the status is in District 25? How many schools have gotten them, or are there any projects up and coming in our district? I'm not sure.
Okay, I can't answer that specifically because I was not notified about this meeting till late today. So I didn't have any opportunity to look at the data for District 25 in particular. However, at this point, I would say in general, generally speaking, the system is in almost all of our high school sites, not all, but almost all, a very large percentage of middle school sites, and a smaller percentage of the special ed and elementary sites. And we're hoping to focus on completing all the middle school and high school sites, so they all have it, and all the sites that have a special ed population of 50 students or more. And so that's our goal, to accomplish that in the next couple of years. Like I said, we had a big hiccup where we lost momentum, and so there would be no reason, I'd have to look specifically at the data. One thing we do not do, though, is we do not publicly release lists of sites that have and do not have cameras, because that would be a security lapse. Anybody looking to do harm might be interested in knowing that information. So we don't release publicly those types of lists. But if you want percentages, I'd be happy to have a look into that and report back, as to what percentage of the school buildings in District 25 currently have the IPTV system.
So I understand, and yes, if we would be very grateful if you would be able to provide us with the percentage. We understand that perhaps you cannot report which schools, and that will probably segue into the next item of concern, but we would greatly appreciate if you would let us know at least what the percentage is in our district, so we know.
Sure.
that
And
our district is
let me add one other
Okay.
thing. Let me add one other thing. There are really at this point 3 ways that a site would receive the project, either a new installation or some type of upgrade, or there's really 3 ways. So one way is as if the school administration reaches out to elected officials, particularly the city council and the borough presidents, for what's known as a Resolution A allocation. That's money, capital money, that's earmarked for a specific purpose. So across the city, certain council members and certain borough presidents, current and in the past, have had interest in this project, interest in cameras in the schools. And so every year, a handful or 2 handfuls of sites across the city receive money from the city council or borough presidents to fund the project. So over all the years, it's been quite a few. It's a small number each year, some years 4 or 5, some years 8 or 9, but typically every year, elected officials allocate Resolution A money for the IPTVS program for specific sites. Are you familiar? I just want to make sure the
So
panel
we're
members.
familiar with it, and I think we
Yes.
did have it in the past. But
Yes.
it's my understanding, well, maybe I misunderstood. I thought that SCA took over that project about
All right.
installing
All right. So
cameras.
I want to explain this. Thank you, sir. There are 3 ways. That's one. One way is through Resolution A. That is still exists every year. Every year, there's a process by which the city council and borough presidents earmark money for capital projects, video surveillance, computer labs, library enhancements, science lab, whatever the project is, playground refurbishment. But I'm saying that every year, including here in fiscal 22, there are allocations for ResoA projects for video surveillance. So that's still very much alive. That is the a viable route. The second way is what you call capacity jobs. The SCA, if they have a building that is getting a building addition, capacity project, let's say we have a building that currently seats 400 and they're going to make it seat 700. They can put an addition on the building. As part of the addition project, if that site doesn't have video surveillance currently, they're going to put video surveillance in the whole project, not when they do the addition, not just the addition, but the whole building. So when we have new lease sites, and the SCA has been leasing sites all over the city for 3K and pre-K. When they do a new lease project, they put in video surveillance, IPTVS, as part of the project. As long as it's a long-term lease. If it's a lease for 1 or 2 or 3 years or less than 5 years, they won't do that. But long-term lease, they always put it in. So ResoA is 1, capacity projects are 2. Capacity projects are like a building addition, a new long-term lease, or even a new building. I believe there's not that many in recent years, but occasionally there are buildings still, brand new school buildings, and those buildings always get the video surveillance system. So again, we have ResoA number 1 as 1 source, capacity project source 2. Source 3 would be the capital improvement program that SCA manages, where there is money in the capital plan, a very small percentage of the capital plan is for safety and security. It's right around 1% of the capital plan. But from that sliver, we are funding video surveillance projects. That sliver had been interrupted, as I indicated. We had a hold on our capital improvement project, but we did get approval in December from the mayor's office management budget to resume accessing the money for the IPTVS capital improvement program. So again, 3 ways the projects are initiated. 1 is with Resolution A funding. 1 is part of a capacity project that SCA is doing, a project to provide seats. And the 3rd would be through the capital improvement program for safety and security.
Understood, Mr. Warner, thank you. I'm not sure if any of my fellow council members have any questions for you. Anybody here?
Hi, Joe. This is Rashmi. I have
Hi,
a
Rashmi,
question.
go ahead.
Hi. Well, I'm sorry. Was anybody else speaking? Because before me,
You
so
can go, and if
I'll
anyone else, we'll get to that.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Renner. That was very useful information. What I have few different questions. So did I hear you correctly that there are 3 ways to fund? I'm going to stick to one topic, security camera, for example, for the schools, resolution project under SCA or 1% of capital plan.
All right.
Did I?
Okay. So let me go through that one more time. There is Resolution A, which is, I think the chair of the panel said that you're familiar with that. That is when the city council members or borough presidents earmark money for specific capital project. That's called Resolution A funding.
Right.
That's one. A second is what you call capacity projects. That's when there are projects in the capital plan, for example, to build a new building. Let's say build a new elementary school that didn't exist before, or put an addition on an existing building, like take a building that has capacity for 400 children and make it big enough for 700, or take over a lease of site, take over a closed Catholic school and lease it and make it into a DOE school. Those
Right.
type of capacity projects is part of the SEA standard program design. Those projects will include video surveillance.
Got
And
it.
all right, so it's going in, for example, whenever they're leasing a long-term lease for 3K, for pre-K, they're doing those projects.
Right. I
And-
got, no, yeah,
Right,
I understood.
the third is within the capital plan, there is a small segment of the plan for safety and security enhancements.
Okay.
And within that section, we do capital improvement projects for video surveillance. We
Okay.
have, as I tried to make clear, in this particular capital plan, we had a big delay. We were stopped with the pandemic, and it took a long time to get the approval to resume initiating projects. But we just got in December. There was some projects that had already been initiated and promised to particular schools that were stopped when the pandemic hit. And we now got, the SEA now has access to the money, and they now are able to finish those designs and turn those over for bidding and get those jobs bid out and implemented.
Okay.
And we,
So-
yes,
So I understood those three areas. My question was following up on exactly what you just said. So thank you for clarifying it further. So I'm going to give an example of one school because it came into the SEA presentation last week. And this is not the only school, but it's the school that I'm going to use as an example to understand this flow of money for schools for video surveillance. First, you had mentioned that I didn't see in your talk you mentioning elementary school at all. You mentioned high school, middle school,
Well-
and special education schools.
well, we
So I
have,
guess
no, I meant all, we're targeting all schools that in the next group of installations that we hope to get approval for, we plan to target all schools, including elementary schools that have 50 or more special ed students, not just special ed D75 schools. There are many schools that have special ed populations that are not entirely a special ed school. And we do have the system in a large number of elementary schools already, and we continue to do so. But we are, I said there's a specific focus that it has not been in the past, but there's going to be a focus on the schools that have special ed populations. There's been a lot of concern about the need to address that.
Okay, so I'm very happy you talked about proactive steps that's being taken, but I'm going to use example of one school. For SEA presentation from last year, this is my second term, they had this school PS 200. They talked about security camera and surveillance throughout the school and outside premises. They talked about the exact same issue this year. So it looks like this school had this issue for last 2 years for sure, maybe more, but this was not even in radar. And this is an elementary school. So all these three types of funding that school gets for their surveillance, I'm not able to understand where the priority is to get a school a surveillance camera, because that should be number one priority, not because an accident has happened, just to prevent an accident. So if you can just help me understand for PS 200, if it's in your chart, to get the security camera and surveillance throughout the school and outside premise. Now, I'm only taking example of this one school because it just stuck to me. It stuck to me because it was there last year and it was exactly the same thing this year. So it just felt like their request is falling through the cracks.
Okay, so we're not that's a good question, very fair question. First, I would say that while obviously schools and principals and superintendents and all kinds of other parties of the DOE send in requests frequently, we're not choosing the sites based on request. The reason why is that almost every building at this point in this day and age, almost every building that does not have the system has already requested it. The amount of the situation will improve as we will be doing more sites, but the amount of money that would be required to provide every building and then maintain in every building and continually life cycle replacement for every building is greater than the amount of resources that is devoted to this, that's been allocated for this. So we're not at the point where every school will be receiving the system in the near future. But I will try and report back on the percentages in your district and also some citywide data on the percentages of the various types of schools. So you'll see that there are many elementary schools that do have, but I'll report back on percentages, what percentage of the overall buildings have and so on, and your district and the city overall and the levels. But I would say that there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 buildings that don't have the system, and the resources have not been provided to equip all those schools. We hope to make a huge dent in that. But it's also not just a one-time investment, because with any technology, there has to be life cycle replacement. Servers have a lifespan of at most like 7 years or so. The servers, cameras themselves maybe have a lifespan of like 10 to 12 years and so on. So it's not like you provide every school the system one time and then we're done. So,
You're
but
right. You're
so
right.
I just want to finish, and then happy to hear a follow-up question. But we did have a major, I try to be very transparent about this. A lot of projects that we can only do, the SAA can only work on so many projects at the same time. So we had a large group of projects that we initiated, start scoping out right before the pandemic in February of 2020. And then there was a hold put on all of it in March 2020. And it was not until December 2021 that we got the approval to proceed. So those projects are now, the designs are being refreshed and they're being turned over for bidding over the next couple of months. And then we're right behind that now, working on trying to get approval for an additional large group of projects. And when we get that, there'll hopefully be more information coming out to the principals, superintendents about that shortly. I'm not in position to go into that tonight yet, but we do anticipate over the rest of the capital plan. We're currently in the plan from 2020 to 2024. We do anticipate making a very significant dent in reducing the number of buildings that lack the system. But requesting is not really the answer, because I know of only a couple buildings in the system where the principals do not want it and have spoken up that don't believe in video surveillance. Almost every principal that doesn't have the system, we've heard from them because, they see from their peers and their colleagues at other schools, that's a very useful system.
Okay, so point well taken, and I appreciate your detailed variation. So this is a bigger topic, so I don't want to take the rest of the evening on this question, ongoing questions, but the core issue is that safety and building accessibility should be the priority number one. It should not be a bidding process, which school gets first or which school doesn't get at all. All school, regardless of how small or big they are, whether they have one special ed student or 50, should have a video camera. They should not be requesting it for more than one term. Forget about requesting. They shouldn't even be requesting it. It should be a top priority. So school safety, and for this, so maybe that's a very core of the DOE that we need to look into, that this whole allocation of capital towards this cause should be raised to a little bit of a higher bar. But maybe that's a different discussion, but it may not pertain just to District 25. It's probably an overall issue from what I see and hear. So that's a topic, but as a parent, I wanted to raise that. I'm very concerned when I hear from DOE that for surveillance, there is a bidding process, there is all these small allocations, but it's still not a priority number one. But everything else gets allocated and new buildings are being made, top floors are being made, awesome things, those get security cameras, but old buildings, any kind of stuff, it's something as a parent, I'm really passionate about. And I mean, it just really bothers me. So,
Yeah,
but
so-
this is a bigger conversation and I just don't want to take more time, but
No,
I really
okay.
appreciate your insight and I truly appreciate
Sure.
your time. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Sure, and yes, okay, I thank you for that. I will be reporting back on some of the statistics.
So the question I want to just go off on that a little bit is, if we want to reach out to our elected officials for ResoA on a project, are we able to check? I know you can't make it public to, what schools they're putting these, what's on the projects for whatever school, but how are we able to know whether SCA is handling it and whether or not we're wasting our time asking for a ResoA solution?
All right, so this is, I would say the following very simply, that if a building knows, and you're speaking with the principal at the building, if they don't currently have the system and they want, and like they expressed the sentiments that we just heard, how important it is for safety, and they really want to have it. And if the elected officials are amenable, obtaining ResoA is a very effective way to expedite the project. Everyone is once the elected officials allocate the funding, there's a big emphasis, on trying to get those projects scoped out, designed and bid out, so that they, from my own experience, I've seen that be very effective. That if schools receive the ResoA allocation and it's sufficient amount of money to do the project, there's a real expedite those projects. So, we notify, I actually send out the notices when a site is going to be included in the capital improvement program. I send them so the principals would know if their site is getting it. I can't, we can't share in advance. We can only share once the project, once we're in position to access the funding and so on. But we do, we send out an intro email, explains about the program, explains about the benefits, explains where cameras are allowed, and explains that somebody from the SCA will go out and schedule an initial site survey meeting. And so the principals all know when they're getting the system. Similarly, they also are notified if they're going to be getting an upgrade or so forth. So the best thing to do would be speak with the principal. They would know whether they have the system currently, and they would know if they've received notice that they are receiving it. Now, if they have not received notice, it doesn't mean that we will not be providing it. We will hopefully be doing a large number over the rest of the capital plan. As I tried to explain earlier, we got delayed, but we will be hopefully getting approval to launch more projects. And when we do, we'll be communicating with those schools.
Wonderful. So we'll just basically follow up with the principals on the issues that came up during our request for projects. So again, I thank you. I don't know if any other council members have any questions for you. Is there anyone? Holly, can you tell me from the chat?
No.
Anybody here? So we look forward to just hearing the percentages, if you don't mind, whenever you have time. And then I can report that back to the council. But I thank you for your time, and I thank you for joining us this evening, Mr. Weiner.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for joining. So I'm gonna, there are some other items of safety concern, but I want to also give my fellow council members the floor. So I'm asking you guys if you have any questions for school safety, to either let Carly know in the chat or let me know if I can hear you. But one of the other items that I have specifically on my radar for concern, I have an older child who attends a parochial high school. And recently there were some social media posts that were presented where this particular school was targeted for potential shootings and a bombing, which caused the school to close for a full week. And we were told that, the principal told us that this happens all the time across the city. So it's not something unique to his school, which made me wonder, how are you handling any types of social media threats to schools? And do you have anything to comment about that?
Absolutely.
Parents.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a fantastic question. It is an unfortunate question that needs to be raised and spoken about frequently, especially in this day and age. And the idea of threats made to schools, as we all know, is not new, but the avenues by which threats can be made are far more available, and that makes it a little bit more scary. What I also hope is that for all of our families in all of our schools, that there is meaningful engagement at the start of the year when these types of incidents happen, and immediately following with reminders of what procedures and policies are in place that will certainly focus on what to do when these things happen. But it will also focus in a very general way on the school's connections and partnerships with local law enforcement. Here tonight, I could certainly share some of those expectations, but I also want to let everybody know, without getting too specific, what in general should happen. And we know that we're joined by our Borough Safety Director, and Judy is a big supporter of all that we do. Our regular relationships between school officials, local law enforcement, and the Borough Safety Director is absolutely across the city the number one way that we know these threats will be immediately investigated, looked into in ways that go well beyond what most of us can do. When we receive social media threats, I will tell you that there are a handful of people who mobilize to be able to determine through social media forums with police investigators the validity, the reality of the threat that's been made, as well as whether or not the individual is one who needs assistance. And there are a lot of things that happen, from identifying a person and knowing that there are some mental health supports going on and providing those supports, all the way to realizing that some threats that are received don't even apply to our school. In fact, we've had some cases where schools in the city that have same or similar names are identified as having received a threat. And through very quick and swift investigation with our law enforcement partners, we may find out that a Lincoln High School in Nebraska was the school that received an unfortunate threat, but through social media gets connected to one of our schools. And then unfortunately, there are cases where an individual, sometimes even a person connected to a school, does express some inappropriate language and pictures, and sometimes they are a threat to a school community, and those are also immediately investigated, intervened. In many cases, there have been criminal actions. In many cases, there have been mental health supports. The understandably frustrating thing, and I'm sure you found this in the parochial school as we do in our public schools, is for so many reasons, we don't share with the public all the things that are being done to support the individual, to criminally address the individual. Sometimes we come through to a school community with a little bit more of a generalized statement, and we know that that does not often satisfy everybody. What's most important when these things happen is that the school community knows that the message that the principal is issuing or the superintendent is swift and clear. It is not with delay, and that they also remind everybody that they've worked with law enforcement. If someone's been identified, that proper action has been taken. There are usually other conversations that can happen at the school level, but I think the number one concern, and I did hear it from friends who also are connected to that school, and we hear it with our schools often, that individuals want more information to be satisfied that the proper thing was done. We take a different spin. We make sure that the school community is aware of the resources and supports that we have, the collaborations that we have, reminding everybody that even when someone posts something on social media and the individual hits the delete button and they think it went away, screenshot or not, there are more than enough ways for us to work with these social media platforms and investigators. And in most of these cases, there is swift follow-up with identification. And thankfully, we have been fortunate that these types of threats have not panned out. And it's honestly because of the swift behind the scenes action for individuals who are involved. There is a lot of sharing with regards to what goes next, what happens next. So principals are aware, superintendents are aware. It's not done within a vacuum, but I'm sure you can understand that for privacy reasons and so many others, we simply don't let the entire community know all the ins and outs of what has happened.
Understood. Thank you, Jay. So the question that I have is, it seems like school safety is reactive to most of these threats. Is there anything, maybe I misunderstood, but is there anything that school safety does in a proactive manner where they are, looking through social media, or are they always on, or is it something that they have to have the threat first before they react?
Absolutely. Another great question. I would think when it was originally posed, I might have taken it to see, or rather to see what is done when it happens. So that's why everything I explained was reactive. But similarly, our expectation centrally, especially in our office, beyond just school safety and law enforcement, our office is the Office of Safety and Youth Development, and our primary focus is to be able to deliver resources to schools and the school community so that prevention is the key, so that all the adults in a building receive training in a variety of topics, so that when they're working with children, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the busing area, whether it's on the bus, whether it's in the cafeteria, that our staff, our adults are able to see and understand the signs, to know who the members are of both our building response team, our crisis team, folks involved in de-escalation and investigation, counselors, social workers, all the right, even just, Mrs. Jones, the math teacher who connects with the kids, to be able to find the minute we hear or see things, maybe it's in a child's assignment, maybe it's a posting on social media, to be able to mobilize and get that child and family supports that they need. As it relates to the monitoring of social media, I could think back to years where we've had vendors come forward and claim that they have the best answer to monitor every keyword for every social media. And, if in fact all of those resources were as effective as we like to think, then we would catch a lot of these social media threats long before the horrific acts that have taken place take place. So, there is quite a bit of monitoring that can go on, but the reality is that particular level of action tends to be more reactive, more responsive. There's no way to identify when an individual is going to make a threat. Even if we were to monitor from behind the scenes, if we had a way, which we don't, but even if we had an ideal way to monitor every website that every student, that every faculty member goes on, there are things that people look up all the time, and it doesn't necessarily equate to a threat. So the real answer to that question regarding social media is our office does a large number of trainings and workshops for student groups, for parent groups, for school groups at request. It's done through a gentleman in our office who has been doing it remotely, even more during the pandemic, has done that live. We've worked with CECs and superintendents across the boroughs. We've worked with FACE in the past and will continue to do so. Sometimes even the most adept individual hearing a presentation for parents in a different way sometimes sparks a thought, makes someone realize that they're not checking in as often as they can, or that they're not sharing information with each other as they should be. So we certainly can increase by any request the number of presentations to any interest group that would like that. And that presentation also shares best practices and ideas, and it does go into how we work with social media, so that sometimes individuals who think there's no connection will learn that there is a connection. But we also build into that the reminder that folks at schools, parents, families, they're here to help and support, and we're here to do that together. And those are some of the greater means of prevention. I could tell you that we had many, many incidents that have been prevented because after these sessions, someone comes forward. Maybe it's a teacher. I did do an assignment with my kids and they wrote something. A parent will send an email or contact the school to say, I felt uncomfortable and I saw this on my child's history. Or students will come forward and indicate that they saw someone else scrolling through something. So, there are many, many ways that we can increase our supports to help prevent, make sure that we're tapping into overall mental health and well-being of kids, not just kids, by the way, but adults as well, not just when something happens, but before that happens. And that comes through awareness sessions. So OSID remains ready and available to conduct as many of those workshops as we need to. We do that frequently for schools. It's part of their training in a variety of ways at the beginning of the year. And we're hoping that our expectation, rather, is that the school principals and their staff are rolling up their sleeves and and taking the same actions that we train them in all throughout the year.
So Jay, I just want to say, everything that you're talking about, I asked for the microphone in advance because I just want to tell parents that OSIT really does a wonderful job on promoting digital citizenship, and your program is, we knew that today was a little bit busy, but next month, Louis Latito from my office, who was trained in all of your digital citizenship and digital wellness and safety, will be doing that presentation for the CEC. He also presents at PTA meetings, so I want to say thank you for that information. I actually learned some information as a parent for myself. You know, I was going to say, Dr. Melendez, I have a 16-year-old, and you have a little time to wait, just so you know. But, but you know, I will say to parents, you should check out those resources online. They're wonderful. They really give parents some support. But we will be here next month as well to present some of the information and the presentations that OSIT does. So I want to say thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I also have, I'm going to turn the mic back over to Mr. DiBenedetto in a minute, but I just also wanted to say a big thank you to Judy Arroyo Nunez. And I want everyone to know how hard she works in keeping our schools safe. I don't think she sleeps. Just the other day, she spent the entire day at a school with me. Judy, I do want to say thank you. You really do have such a great connection with our principals. When there's any kind of safety concerns, you give advice. You do make immediate connections and are building relationships with our local precincts and our principals. So I do want to say thank you for all the work that you've done, you know, over the time that you've been with us.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm here to support our school communities, our children, 100%. And thank you for your support, because we work together. Without it, it becomes a little bit more challenging, but absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Judy. I don't know if any of the other council members have any other questions or comments for any of our guests this evening. Anyone here? Okay, so I don't like to control everything. I like to give my council members an equal say, but the other topic on the school safety that came up at last month's meeting were issues regarding crossing guards and traffic. And I understand the NYPD has to be notified about that, but does anybody here have any comments about what we can do to improve or to seek solutions regarding crossing guards?
Oh, I just want to put a reminder out there. So we do have a point of contact in our office at OSID who works closely with the NYPD and actually has worked on the community side to share postings and opportunities to try to help get that recruitment message out. I don't know if that effort has reached District 25. I don't want to speak for Surge, but I do know that there have been initiatives where through superintendents and schools, we have tried to also encourage individuals from the school community, you know, parents who may be looking for work. It's a very, very hard job to fill. It's not a very high paid job, and we understand it, but it's so critically important. And sometimes it's just a matter of folks not knowing where to go. So, you know, Judy, if you are taking notes, we can remember to follow up with Surge to see if there have been any opportunities for information and awareness. And of course, if the superintendent is interested in seeing what can be done to, you know, help, for lack of a better term, advertise, but I guess in a way that's what it becomes. We may be able to find, if there are opportunities, folks from within the community. And also Surge will be able to provide a little bit more insight as to any work that's been done in trouble spots, not only with the NYPD and crossing guards, but we have an enormous connection with the Department of Transportation, and we hate to only think that we rely on them when there's an unfortunate incident or fatality. And they love to become part of the school program long before and deeper than just Vision Zero. So if these are things that we can share with Serge to help the district, then we're absolutely going to make sure we do that.
So I know there are some issues in some of our schools, like 185 and PS 21, where we have more than 3,000 students that are that leave the building, and that creates a lot of havoc around the schools with traffic, and those are like pressing concerns in our district. Do you know anything about those two schools?
So I don't, but what I can tell you is I'll put it on Judy just to do that email follow-up. We could loop in Serge St. Leger from our office, who takes the lead in that. He'll be able to, whether or not there's been any previous work or support, he'll be able to start rallying that up, reach out to the superintendent, and with Judy's help to the principal. And very often they'll start by doing a visual assessment, find out what the precinct's able to do, and so on. So we could absolutely get some information on that as early as tomorrow, I'm guessing.
That would be so very much appreciated, and we will follow up with Judy and our superintendent. And we thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So again, is there any other council member that has any question or comment for Jay or anybody here from school safety? So members of the safety panel, we thank you once again for showing up this evening. It's a tough job, and we really appreciate you, and we appreciate the fact that you came here this evening, and we look forward to working with you for only positive results. Thank you for joining us this evening.
No, thank you for always being welcoming to us and supporting what we do as we support all of you. And like I said, even if it's after this, if there are questions, you all know how to get to Judy and to myself, and we're always here for you. Be well.
Thank you. Be well. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes. Okay, so we have a busy agenda, right? So our next topic is the MTSS presentation from Queensborough North. We have here, I'm hoping they're still here, Anna Arrigo and Ingrid LaFollette. You're here?
Yes, we're here. Ingrid's going to start. Thank you.
I'm going to give you the mic.
Thank you. So welcome to our District 25 CEC meeting with a focus on MTSS. My name is Anna Arrigo, and I'm an instructional lead for Queens North Borough Office. And I'm also the instructional literacy point for District 25. And I'm here with my colleague, whom will introduce herself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ingrid LaFollette, and I support District 25 with math.
So the goals for MTSS CEC session for today are to engage you in an overview of MTSS, which is a multi-tiered support system, take you through the process of how our schools in District 25 are implementing systems and structures that support equity-based MTSS, and then explore ways as you as families can be a part of the MTSS process. So let's begin by defining the why of MTSS by describing what are the advantages of implementing MTSS in our schools. So here are some advantages of implementing MTSS. It aims to eliminate poor instructional quality as an explanation for students' poor reading or math performance, or both. In MTSS, we're drawing from assets from our students, as that's the primary goal, is to use data from our students to design and implement targeted instruction to meet the needs of each and every student that we service. And the emphasis is on early intervention. That goes from kindergarten to third grade, which is having the preventative care in place so that we can reduce the number of students for referral and special education. Again, the goal is to identify students early on that are not meeting the standards in ELA or math or both, and that are struggling. Within MTSS, assessment data is collected frequently, and these are all of our schools in District 25 and consistently. They are engaged in a pre and post assessment and universal screening, which is done 3 times a year. All of our schools take part of this, and they do it fall, spring, and winter. And the purpose of the assessment is to really determine which students are struggling within each benchmark for reading or writing. And then the assessments that we get the data, we provide feedback to teachers as teachers then use the data to plan targeted instruction, to progress monitor the students in that early intervention stage. So just to give you a little background of the why and what are some of the advantages. Again, the primary goal is to have less students identified inappropriately for special educational services. So now we'll look at what is MTSS. MTSS is a preventative instructional model, which is a continuum of supports to identify students who struggle the most that can receive timely and intensive interventions before being identified for special educational services. The MTSS framework has 3 tiers, and I'm going to just name each of the tiers before I actually take you through and explain the instructional focus of each tier. In tier 1, the next slide, Ingrid, it is the universal instruction, which is for all students. That is primarily 80 to 90% of the students in our classroom. In tier 2, that is a targeted intervention, approximately 5 to 15% of students. And then in tier 3, it is the lowest, right? 1 to 5% of students. So each MTSS tier provides different levels of instructional support, as I now will explain what the instructional features are in each of the tiers. So let's look at the components of tier 1. Tier 1 universal intervention is for all students in the classroom. Tier 1 is the core curriculum that teachers teach on a daily basis, regardless if it's ELA or math, whichever curriculum the school is using. You may hear Teachers College, HMH, iReady, Everyday Math. All students receive high quality curriculum and instruction in the general education classroom. During this time, the teacher assists all students and provides access points to all of the students. In this tier, we provide high quality research-based core instruction that's delivered to the whole class with some flexible grouping. This happens every single day in the classroom. We use a screening assessments that we implement 3 times a year in the fall, spring, and winter. And we link them to the reading and math skills to really see where the students are and how is it affecting the core on their day-to-day instruction. Because the goal is that we really want to be responsive to our students in tier 1 before we actually go to tier 2 and we exhaust this core, the work that we're doing in tier 1. So let's look at the next tier, tier 2. This is for some of the students, and it's the targeted intervention. Students are still receiving the same high quality research-based core instruction they do every day. Plus, there's an extra layer. They're receiving a research-based targeted intensified instruction that's delivered to groups of 3 to 5 students. It takes place about 30 minutes for 3 to 5 days during a week. The duration of the intervention varies depending on the performance of the students, because we check in on the students, we look at their assessments, we give them more assessments, pre-assessments, mid, and we progress monitor them in the moment while they're in this tier. Again, we're using the screeners that we implement 3 times a year to assess whether students are responding to this tier. So students can be in this tier, and it could be they were just recommended based on the spring assessments because they exhausted everything that happens in tier 1 of the intervention. So during this time, we make sure that we're progress monitoring, typically 1 to 2 times a month, to really evaluate the effectiveness of the support. At this level, then we need to make a determination for level tier 3, if students really need to be recommended to the next tier. Finally, this is tier 3 of the MTSS, which is the intensive intervention These are for students that are not responding, that did not respond to tier 1 of the core instruction or tier 2 of the MTSS framework, which is working with groups of 3 to 5 students, 3 to 5 days a week, very intensified, flexible grouping, and we would recommend to go to tier 3 before recommending them for special educational services. In tier 3 intervention, students, again, are still receiving the same high-quality research-based core instruction that they're receiving every single day, plus they're getting this extra layer of receiving a research-based, targeted, intensified program and by a highly skilled instructor that is delivered to groups of 1 to 3 students. It can be a 1-to-1, it could be a 1-to-3. It takes place about 60 minutes a day for 5 days a week. 60 minutes a day for 5 days a week. Again, the duration of this intervention as students are in tier 3 could last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, right? It all depends on the performance of the students and how they're progressing. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a moment just to reflect, because we just went through what is MTSS, what are the advantages, and we looked at the 3 tiers of MTSS and what that looks like in our school buildings. And we also talked about universal screening and assessments. So now I'll open up the forum. Any questions before Ingrid will talk about how you as parents can support this process.
Okay, so that was a wonderful presentation because it's a lot, right? But we already have some questions here. So we'll just, if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce to you Anna Marie Knabel, who serves on our council, is also the special education representative, and she is here to comment or question.
Great.
Thank you so much. That was definitely a lot of information, and I'm going to try to keep it to two main questions here. So this instruction that the kids are getting, this is pull out from their regular class curriculum? Tier 2 and 3, right? That's right, specifically tier 3. So that 30 to 60 minutes, 5 days a week, are they pulled from their regular instruction for that?
I didn't hear the question. Are they being pulled out?
Are they pulled out from the class? Are they missing what the class is doing for this special instruction?
No, so again, yes, that's a really good question. So again, they're still receiving the regular core instruction, and this is in addition to that. And it all depends on each school building and what that looks like, if it's going to be a push-in or a pull-out of that 60 minutes in the tier 3. Again, it's from another teacher, a highly skilled classroom teacher that will be giving this particular intervention for those particular students.
So this is like having an IEP without having an IEP. Kind of.
Danielle, I'll refer that to you because the students in tier 3 do not have an
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, my superintendent.
So I will say it's about receiving intensive supports for a cycle, right? You know, it really is, and so I actually want to go back, if you don't mind, Anna, to just talk about a couple of things that are really connected to the district. So when Anna is talking about assessments that we look at district-wide, and I know that Dr. D'Antona and I have made these presentations to you before, these are the assessments, the citywide assessments that are given, but that are also specific to District 25, which is Acadians in our earlier grades for ELA, and then iReady for ELA in grades 3 through 8, and then iReady for math in grades K through 8. So these are the tools that we use to really look at students who may need MTSS supports. Now, if you look at tier 1 are things that when a parent sits with a teacher during parent-teacher conference, the teacher may say, so I give Danielle sentence starters, or I will give her certain types of paper with lines to write with, or here's a couple of things that as I'm teaching, maybe some vocabulary stems. All of those things that a teacher does within the classroom is tier 1. So one of the things that we say is really important for a parent, when you're sitting with your teacher during parent-teacher conferences, to start talking about If a teacher says Danielle is struggling with this, you might want to say, well, what are some of the tier 1 instructional features that you use, or how are you using some tier 1 strategies to support her? And what are some of those things that I can look for at home, right? So if I see a graphic organizer, or there's something special that they're giving for math. I was in a classroom recently where the teacher said only 1 math problem per page, right? Because this specific student needs that space to understand and expand their math thinking, right? All of those things are tier 1. Tier 2 is where you will see a more intensive, maybe during morning or after school supports with larger groups of students, but it may be, and in a lot of our schools, it is specific teachers where teachers are taking time in the mornings and they're giving that concentrated help and support for a cycle of learning, which does include screening, right? So if I'm doing some morning activities or after school programs, or even during the day, where I am working in small groups of 3 or 5, an expectation for a parent would be, if you're using that program, what are the results of it, right? So some schools use specific interventions, guided reading, depending upon the needs of each individual student. Guided reading could be one, or great leaps for fluency in either math or literacy. All of these things a parent should be made aware of that are happening so they can check back and reinforce. Adam, make any corrections if I'm saying something.
Yeah, no, you're right on point. It's also having just communication with a class and teacher, as a superintendent is saying, is really like, what tools can I have at home that I can reinforce what my child is actually being taught or really needs in the classroom? So it could be maybe vocabulary, skills and strategies. How, what do I do when I get stuck to a word and I don't know how to sound it out? Filter, what else can I do? Even for writing, can you support me in coming up with ideas in, elaborating on my main idea, right? So really thinking about those components. And again, it can be in the morning, it can be in the afternoon, but it's also about what is the core instruction the teacher is doing on a daily basis after she's done with the delivery of her lesson, right? So she could be pulling 3 to 5 students and reinforcing that same exact strategy to these students during the classroom, but these students are now identified as tier 2. So she's doing an intensified version of her lesson, but she is strategically tailoring it to these 3 to 5 students in her classroom because she knows that these students are struggling and are not understanding the task that's given to the majority of her class. So it's really being strategic. And again, it can be done in the morning, afternoon, mid, but students never miss the core reading and writing and math instruction in the classroom while they're in this particular tier, in any of these tiers.
Yep, and the reason why I think this is really important is, Amory, going to what you said, in some instances, you will see similar supports for students that do have IEPs. But what we're trying to do through MTSS is say, is the intensive support, which is tier 2 or even tier 3, closing those learning lags where a student may not need to have the referral? If not, the recommendation, or a parent at any time could always recommend the referral process. But what we are saying is, how well do our parents know to ask and engage in conversations with their teachers and their schools regarding MTSS? What are some of these systems? And I hear that a lot from parents. They'll say, like, I don't know how I feel about the referral process, but I don't know what else there is, so I'm going to ask for a referral, right? I want to be clear. At any time, a parent can ask for a referral, but we also want them to be aware that MTSS is existing across our schools as well.
This is fantastic and so proactive and so necessary, especially in these times. And I think you're right, Danielle, that the communication with the parents is the key part. And I think that's the part where it's going a little bit off, where parents are not realizing, I mean, my child has an IEP, so I have constant communication with my teachers. But the regular parent that doesn't have that Are they really understanding that all of this extra layer is happening in the school and their child is getting this extra assistance, and they'll keep working to see through those 3 tiers where they need to go next. So I think that's the thing that's missing.
Yeah.
And there is communication cycles of progress, and that's what's really important, especially in tier 2 or tier 3. So schools should be communicating with families that have been part of MTSS to say, we've tried this cycle of learning, because remember, it does go in cycles. We're really targeting the specific needs of a learner and saying, after 6 weeks, we still see Danielle struggling with this. So let's have a conversation. Should we continue this to do another cycle, or do we need to go to another tier? And those are really the conversations between parents and teachers.
So I think a lot of the parents, they kind of panic when they realize that their child is struggling, and they go to the highest, they want to get an IEP. So I don't think parents really understand about the MTSS system of support. So it's great that we're presenting this to the community, but do we know like what the success rate is, or what the percentage of students that go through the system that don't end up, it solves the problem and they don't have to be classified as having an IEP? Do you have those numbers? Not that easy.
That's a really good question. So honestly, that is, we do have Dr. Mike, so we're going to start keeping more specific data on MTSS, because that is a good question to look at our success rates. I do want to say to you, although interventions, these types of services have been around for a long time, the concept of this multi-tiered system of support is something that we had to first spend time training our schools in. So you're asking the question, Joe, at the right time. And so we will be able to track that and let you know.
We look forward to hearing that. Yes, Mr. Chow.
Hello, I have a rhetorical question for you. You don't have to answer. It's really for the chancellor. I'm going to spare, the superintendent also. Because you have 3 tiers, wouldn't you be better off putting the tier 3 kids together, tier 2 kids together, tier 1 kids together at the start of the year based on prior year's information? You don't have to answer. So that the tier 1 kids can dash, the tier 2 kids can try to run, and the tier 3 kids can walk. They ultimately all get someplace, but the tier 1 kids will get a lot further than the tier 2 and tier 3. Number 1. Number 2, I was given 3 minutes during the parent-teacher, this one you can answer or you don't have to. I was given 3 minutes during the parent-teacher conference online with the teacher. I don't think I'll get to ask too many questions. Right? I said, hello, thank you for your help. What can I help my child with? Sometimes they say this or that, and that's it. Right? You also have a large number of parents in this district, 25, that really don't speak English that well. So they don't even know where to go. They have a question, all they want to do is email the superintendent or the principal. I'm in a WeChat group. I tell them, no. Go to the parent coordinator. Do not bother the principal or the superintendent in particular. So anyway, that's just for your thought. You don't have to answer.
I want to answer.
Oh, good for you.
Thank you, Joe. I want to answer all 3.
Good.
So I like what you said in terms of communicating with our families that speak languages other than English. As you know, they can always call the district office, but I do want to tell you that our schools have done a tremendous job with gaining support from members of our communities and making sure that there are opportunities for our families that speak languages other than English to connect with people when they come into the schools themselves. And we know that the school is always the first place to start. So more now than ever, we're not receiving calls from our schools for translation because it is something that we worked really hard to make sure that our families have that. Once again, very similar to what Jay said about crossing guards, we see that too. We have a lot of postings up for parent coordinators in our community. So if there's any community members, please make sure you check out our website for that reason. The second piece with parent-teacher conferences, you're absolutely right. Remember I said, as a parent, I don't go to parent-teacher conferences because I don't like having 3 minutes. I love my child and I want to talk about them forever. But I will say New York City has something that is very different and amazing that, most schools have it on Tuesdays, but every Tuesday is parent engagement time. There are some schools that may have different days of the week that is communicated at, through each community, but every Tuesday in most of our schools and parents can connect with their child's teacher, beyond those 3 minutes. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I do want our parents to know that. The third thing that you said, in terms of tracking, which is what you were mentioning, I just want to talk to you a little bit about Dr. D'Antona and I and the work that we're doing in Bank Street with math. So I'm really great at literacy. I'm an English teacher, 7th to 12. I've taught literacy for many, many years, and it is my passion. I'm also a writer. So I love sitting next to Dr. D'Antona because he's amazing in math. And when I sit with him, he's also amazing in writing, but I think I'm better. When I sit with him, I could take something that I might not have understood and ask him questions and look at his learning and the way he thinks through things. And all of a sudden, I have become a math student, right? Dr. D'Antona, you could say, yeah, I am. So, and so I don't know if I would have gained that same knowledge if I was always with somebody who understands math the way I do. So I'm actually building my capacity with being with people who have strengths in areas that I don't. I also think that's part of real world connection, being around people and working with people that don't always have the same skill sets as you. So I think there's both ways to think about it, like you have said, but I know for myself as a learner, I like to be with people that I can share my knowledge with if they might not be in the same place as me, but also to learn from others that are at a different level than me as well.
Thank you. So, Anna, I didn't want to interrupt your presentation. Is there more?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Ingrid's going to take us through how parents can be a part of the multi-tiered system of support.
So I'm glad that we were asking a lot of questions about how parents can, what kinds of questions parents can ask, how parents can support their students, because parents are a real critical and integral part of supporting their child through the MTSS process. So we know that in order for this to be effective, parents and schools must really work together in partnership to support the child that is engaged in MTSS. And as parents, here are some of the expectations that you should have of your child's school. So first, universal screening data should be shared with parents 3 times a year. If your child is recommended to receive an intervention, you should be notified through a letter. So your child will not receive this intervention unless you're notified prior. Also, your child's progress throughout this process should be shared regularly. And we're also going to share some strategies in a few minutes on things that you can do to support your child at home. So as Anna explained earlier, there are different expectations at every tier. So tier 1 happens every day in the classroom. If your child has been identified for tier 2 intervention, please note that that is a temporary support and it's delivered through small group instruction. So your child is not pulled out of class for tier 2. Small group intervention is more targeted through group lessons, and your child will continue to receive instruction in their regular classroom. If your child is then recommended for tier 3, that is individualized support. So that means small group work and even smaller group work, maybe 1-to-1 or 1-to-3 with a specialized teacher. Most kids in tier 3 continue to spend the entire day in the general education classroom, but they do receive maybe resource room or some sort of additional specialized intervention. And remember that the goal of MTSS is to screen early and to give the child support quickly. So it can help schools identify the difference between kids who haven't received good instruction previously or students who truly need special education services. And as the superintendent said earlier, a special education evaluation at any point, the parents can recommend that. But this data that the school will collect through the MTSS process is really helpful information that can help the school write the child's IEP in the event that they need one. So when engaging with your child's teacher and talking about MTSS, here are a list of possible questions that you can ask. And these questions will help you have a better understanding of what is happening in your child's classroom. So some of the things that you want to ask: what curriculum is being taught? What are the targeted interventions that the school is offering to a child if he or she is struggling? What are the formal guidelines that your child's school is using for progress monitoring? How will you be informed of the progress? And what happens if the interventions are not working? In addition to communicating with the school, you can also support your child at home. So research, of course, demonstrates that the more parents are involved in student learning, the higher the student will achieve. So you can be involved in the MTSS process by communicating any concerns that you have to your child's teacher, by providing insight to the teacher about your child's learning and development, and also assisting with some of the interventions identified here on the screen. So these are some of the strategies that you can engage with your child at home to continue to support him or her. So making reading or math problem solving an everyday habit, monitoring and assisting with homework assignments, maintaining open lines of communication with the teacher, and also learning about the curriculum and interventions that are being used in your child's school. At this point, we can take any other additional questions you may have about any of the parent recommendations we just presented.
So before I open up to questions, Ingrid, thank you so much. I do want to add one last thing to some of the things that parents can do in connecting with schools. And for everyone who knows the work that we do across all of our schools, we do conduct parent chats. So if you are interested in participating in a parent chat, please contact your child's school. You can start with their parent coordinator, but I've seen some really strategic parent chats that are very supportive, and there's actually two principals on that I'm going to mention. So Ms. Klager from MS 379, she just did a parent chat with moms around girls' perception in math in middle schools, and she tied that directly to some of the math data that she looked at using iReady, where she saw a 10% discrepancy between boys and girls in her 6th grade. And it was such a wonderful opportunity for myself as a mom to be able to think about some of the ways that I may often distract my daughter when she's struggling with a math problem by saying things like, it's okay, you may not be good at math, mom wasn't good at math either, right? So it was just a wonderful experience for me to kind of reset and rethink how the types of expectations that I had for her in terms of math. So I want to thank her for that. I also had an opportunity to have an amazing parent chat at Junior High School 185, where families were talking to the principal and the parent coordinator about results from the DESA survey and students' perception about positive positive thinking. And so we got a lot of perspective for parents around why some of our students may be struggling in that area, about thinking positively about their work. And from that, Ms. Bashar actually made some changes to the way she programmed the school, as well as letting teachers know what some of the parents were saying in regards to how they feel about school at that time. So make sure you join some of those parent chats.
In schools?
How long have they been, has the MTSS program
That's
been
an Anna.
implemented?
So Anna,
Yes.
ask her about that, because I know she's been doing that for a long time.
How long has MTSS been offered in the schools?
So I think the name has evolved, right? But when we just to say MTSS, I think it's been happening for about the last 4 to 5 years. But as Danielle said, when we talk about RTI, we talk about systems and structures that we have in place. This has been in place going back to 2004, 2005. We may just not have called it MTSS, but this layer of support in the classroom in an effort to really support students prior to making recommendations for special ed have been in place in the classroom for a very long time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm just reading the chat. So all these CEC members are in fact co-hosts. So if they want a question or comment, you are free to comment. I think Sana had a question or a comment. Are you there, Sana?
She wants to be part of the parent chat.
Oh.
Oh.
And another parent wants to keep the slide, so I don't know if they can email that to me and then I can send it out.
Yeah, they can.
So I think parents are asking where they can obtain copies of this of the present PowerPoint, right? Is that a problem to share that?
Absolutely not. Of course.
And Dr. Melendez, I see you raise your hand. You should be able to comment or question.
I can. I just wanted to have room etiquette. I never do. I just shout and then mess everything up. So I'm just practicing. I think I just want to thank you all for this wonderful presentation. And then I also want to say to a parent's point earlier, I know some of the suggestions that may have come up and ways that parents can support their children may sound some of them are very teacher-y, but another question you can ask the teacher is, I can't really do this for whatever reason, whether you don't speak English, whether you can't access that curriculum, whether you don't like math, whether you have some other concerns or issues around time. You can really ask teachers what's another way to support my child in this literacy work if I can't sit there and read, right? And they can come up with so many ideas because this is what they do, right? So they can tell you things like there's an audio book or there's digital books that we have access to. And as long as you just sit and engage with your child knows that you find this important and valuable, that you believe in their ability to try and do and persist through it. And that's really the big thing here, right? That children in your families are oh, my mom really cares, my parents really care about this, they really believe that I can do it. And that can really go a long way. So I don't want us to, some families that can't support in a very sort of teacher way or feel intimidated by it, I just want to say that as my time in the classroom, it's been so helpful just when parents just sit next to them sometimes, or just encourage them, or just say, let's listen to this book together, or let's talk about this together.
It's an excellent point. It starts from the home. So I think, and our children, whether we realize it or not, are influenced by the attention we give to them, and communication is key. So that's a wonderful point. Does anyone else have any comment or question on the council?
I'm not scared of rule anymore. No, it's okay.
Okay, so I
And,
don't know if there's any questions in the chat for anyone. I don't, Carly, are you able to?
They just asked for the parent, for the presentation. When I get it, we'll post it onto the website.
So we will post the presentation on our website for CEC for District 25. I want to thank you both for being here and presenting regarding the MTSS program. I'm not sure if there are any other questions at this time.
Yeah. And we also just wanted to just share, we're doing monthly parent workshops at the Queens North Borough Office that are highlighted on our Queens North family page of the point for that. And one of them is really about taking parents through the steps and processes of how you can support your child at home in ELA and math. And just as simple as like read in your own language, right? And there are so many sites that you can actually go on, Sora, and where you can actually have access to audiobooks and listen in with your child and along with math practices. So I will send that out to you, and then you can just formulate that to your CEC. And they're always invited on a monthly basis. We're actually going to be turnkeying the MTSS to our parents in the next upcoming months, so that you'll get full access to that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think, I don't know if we are able to allow the people that raise their hands
I'm looking for
to comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. I just had a quick question in reference to this particular presentation. Have you all presented or done this presentation in Southeast Queens? Just curious. Thank you.
You're asking if it was presented at Southeast Queens?
In Southeast Queens, like that basically has this been presented to CECs in Southeast Queens? And how can we get this presentation done? I'm just asking.
So we're happy to share this information with anyone. As Carly said, it'll go on their website, but this presentation was really organized with our CEC and the borough working together really around the concerns in District 25's learning lags and that may have been brought on by the pandemic, and how parents can be more aware, but they're happy to share the PowerPoint with everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this.
Yes, I would also suggest that you reach out to your CEC and perhaps they can arrange for some type of presentation.
I also want to remind everyone that the recording of this meeting will be available on the website also, if people want to watch the recording of the presentation. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you.
Was there another hand raised?
Not that I see.
There was two, no?
No, that was Christine, but she had already, Christine.
Okay, so once again, Anna, Ingrid, thank you for joining us this evening. A wonderful presentation. And obviously, if we have any questions or concerns and we need to reach out to you in the future, I'm sure you'll be willing to join us once again. But thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. You're welcome anytime.
Wonderful, thank you. So moving right along, we have, before I go, I'm not sure if anybody had registered for any public speaking. Do we have any new business that we want to tend to during our calendar meeting? Council members? So if there is no other new item of new business, Carly, do we have anybody on our list for speaking? So we have no.
There's somebody in the chat that wants to make a public comment.
Where I didn't see it.
Louis, thank you for looking
I
out.
didn't see that. Thank you. Venus. Well,
Oh, is it Miss Ketchum?
Is that Miss Ketchum?
Sounds like.
Venus?
Hold on.
There you are. Nice to see you. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I think you're gonna have to either raise the volume, but we can't hear you.
1 second, I'm
There
going
we are,
to.
we're good.
Okay, great. Good evening. My name is Venus Ketchum. I am a parent and community leader in education in Queens. I am also a product of District 25. I lived across the street and attended PS 154. I graduated from Parsons Junior High School 168, now QSI, and Jamaica High School in 1997, and a bachelor's degree from Hunter College. I started attending CEC District 25 maybe about 7 or 8 years ago in person, in order to turnkey or to see what was happening in the district, and then turnkey that to District 28, which was my son's elementary and middle school district. Since then, and during that time, I attend CECs across Queens, in a district in Brooklyn and a district in the Bronx. But my passion is for Queens South, where I currently live, even though I grew up in Queens North. And my greater passion and purpose is for parent empowerment, parent true knowledge and understanding of how the system works and how to make it work for them. Starting at the school level with their parent coordinator, with their PTA, with their school leadership team, and all the way up to their CEC superintendent, executive superintendent, and chancellor. Parents really just understanding that this system has stood the test of time. It's not perfect. It has many, many flaws, different for each district, different for each borough. But parents really having that power to make it work for them, to have that deeper understanding of their child and making sure that the needs of their child are being met at the schools. And this presentation was phenomenal. I have always given District 25 their flowers, even when they tried to cut me out of the chat and the Zoom. I'm never gonna let that go, right? And no need to apologize right now during my minutes. You can apologize to me forever. But I really want to emphasize, I really like the way you are taking accountability and trying to ensure that every parent understands this by providing it in multiple languages and putting it on your website and having it on your YouTube, and being a district that can be a model for other districts in just how to communicate how education, learning, and teaching is happening in the classroom. Is it perfect for every family and every parent? No. But I think that if parents bring it to your attention, that you will address their needs and concerns. And my prayer is that other districts can learn how to communicate and give parents this basic foundation and continue to teach them and allow them to learn and grow so that all of our kids across the city can be successful. So that's it.
So thank you, Venus. It's always a pleasure to see you. You certainly are passionate, and we certainly hope that many other parents in our community are just as passionate as you are, because you help us make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venus. Are there any other comments in the chat? So we're all new to this. We're operating on a hybrid system here. So I thank everyone for their patience. It seems to be working. But if we have no other items of new business, I ask for a motion to adjourn the calendar meeting. Mr. Chow made the motion. He's here present, and Emery seconded the motion. So I thank everyone for joining us for the calendar meeting. We'll take about a 2-minute break before we start our business meeting. We look forward to seeing the public. Public is always free to join us during the business meeting, but we're meeting once again the first Wednesday of March. I believe our next meeting is March 8th, at 7 p.m. And we will post on our site, and schools will notify you on what the topics are for that meeting. So thank you for joining us. We'll take a 2-minute break. So welcome to our business meeting, but I apologize to the public because I corrected a correction that needs to be recorrected. Our March meeting date was originally scheduled for March 2nd, but because it is parent-teacher conference that evening for the elementary schools, we were going to postpone it to the following Wednesday, but it's also parent-teacher conferences for the middle schools. So we agreed that we were gonna have our March meeting on a Tuesday, March 8th. So the correct date for our next meeting will be March 8th on a Tuesday. We will post the notice, in due time, and we'll put it on our website. And I apologize for the mistake made by myself. Okay, so let's start our business meeting. So, we're here live in person, and we have to basically give up the room by 9:30. So I don't want to rush anyone, but let's go for the roll call.
Joseph Di Benedetto,
Present.
Wing Yu,
Present.
Anne Marie Knable, Joseph Chow, True, sorry, Sung Young Lee, Shirley.
She's there. She's here.
I hear her. I just gotta get her on the camera. Shirley, you gotta unmute. I gotta catch you. I gotta record you saying it. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm trying to make it work. I'm sorry.
Rashmi Krishnaraj.
Present.
Michelle Frederick.
Present.
And Sana Tayeb.
Present.
And I think Catherine left. Yes, okay.
Okay, so we have more than a quorum. Thank you for staying on, and we welcome you to our business meeting. Let's just, we're gonna get to the phase updates because Juliana is here, and I believe Juliana wants to speak to us. But before we do that, I wanted to have the council members look at the business meeting minutes so we can approve those. You can put that on the screen, Carly.
Yes.
Can you all hear me? So do we have consensus to approve our business meetings for January? Any changes required, requested? Okay, so the meeting minutes are hereby approved. So I know Julianne is here and she wanted to speak to us, give us a few words about some updates, and then we'll take on the new business. Juliana, you should be co-host.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We can.
Hi, everyone. It is so great to see you and to see the perfect attendance of your council this evening and to hear incredible presentations. Just kudos to Carly and everyone who had a hand in arranging those presenters. Really important information that was shared. Thank you so much, Joe and council, for letting me bring a couple words to you. Joe, I don't want to take up too much time since you only have until 9:30, so I will be as concise as possible. Please mark your calendars for March 8th or March 7th. Your meeting is the 8th. That's why I'm thinking about that. So March 7th is going to be a CEC training put on by FACE about special education. You should have all received that email. And I will send it around to everybody again, just so that it's top of mind. That's March 7th. The other thing is that I wanted to share a phone number with you about high school admissions. Superintendent said, please apply by March 1st, but and obviously calling your school and speaking with your guidance counselor is probably the best way to get information about high school. But there is a video about high school admissions on the high school website, on the DOE's webpage, and there's a video of part 2 of the presentation will be posted shortly. The other phone number that you can reach out to, that you can share with parents, is 718-935-2009. I'm putting it in the chat, so you can direct high school questions there as well. I think that that's all I will say on that right now, in interest of time. So I wanted to bring up, you have asked me about the extension of Executive Order 11, which permits public bodies to continue meeting remotely. I don't have great news. The current executive order is scheduled to expire on February 15th. So all meetings planned for after February 15th you should be making plans for those to be in person. I mean, we have seen a pattern. We did see the January 15th expiration. There was an expiration on January 15th. We found out days before January 15th, the governor signed off on extending the executive order. You are in a great position for your March 8th meeting, because once February 15th will be here in less than 2 weeks, and you will still have time to pivot to in-person if you need to, fully in person if you need to do that. Unfortunately, everybody at the DOE is simply staying abreast of what's going on in Albany and continues watching and waiting for the governor to extend the executive order. Questions about that?
So I just want to make sure that the council members understood. So as of now, the public meetings are able to go remotely through February 15th. It may be possible that there'll be an extension, but we'll know before February 15th. However, if it's not extended, then we're expected to appear in person for our March 8th meeting, correct?
Correct.
Does any council member have any questions or issues with that? Okay, Juliana, I don't think they have questions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say that, I have been, FACE has been speaking with the legal department and with our colleagues at Intergovernmental Affairs, because I understand how difficult it is to have this expire on the 15th of every month and then change your plans. Oh, I apologize. It is not something that, it is something that the DOE it's not a policy that we're putting in place. And so I really apologize that this is a great inconvenience in terms of planning. So just a couple things is that I'm looking forward to having these regular touch bases with you. And I'm hoping that we can have a check-in, which would be a non-public meeting, a meeting that I call for the purposes of training on the 10th, February 10th at 6 p.m. So if you could mark your calendars, I will send out a Zoom link and we will convene a short FACE check-in for about an hour on February 10th. Since this is your business meeting, I wanted to mention that you still have a vacancy to fill, and I'm hopeful that you can do another round of advertisement and can fill that parent vacancy. I think that the fact that there was an inquiry about Chinese interpretation, it's worth it to ask Carly to request Mandarin interpretation proactively next month, especially if you as a council can do a little bit of promoting of the meeting in Mandarin. That's just a recommendation, just a suggestion. And of course, you have not, I wanted to mention that you have not passed any resolutions in the recently, and many of the topics covered tonight are possibilities for resolutions. I wanted to remind you all that any one of you is able to draft a resolution by yourself and share it with the council. Any one of you is welcome to join any one of the committees on CEC 25 and draft a resolution in partnership with your colleagues on the council, with your fellow council members. So resolutions can be submitted by committees or by individuals to the council for your consideration. A resolution is the most formal way that you as a council let the DOE know what you believe should be DOE policy and DOE priority. Okay, I thank you so much for giving me a couple minutes this evening. I am here in between meetings. You can always email me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juliana. So, you and I have spoken about these touch base, private meetings between CEC members as part of training. I always told you it's, I'm open to it. It's up to the other council members. So, I mean, if you send us the Zoom link for February 10th, we hope that those that are willing to come will in fact show up. Nice to hear that you have a training for on March 7th, because we do have a new member and we have new members this term. Sana, that might be something you might be interested in. And of course, we're always looking to fill in our vacancy. I'll speak to Carly about posting something on our website, and we're always welcome anyone who want to be part of the CEC to join us. So that would be a great idea, and we thank you for bringing that up. We do have some subcommittees. We do make resolutions. We have, and I agree with you, we have not made any resolutions as of yet. We have some items of concern, but we did not have a quorum. So I'm hoping that, now that we are almost in full capacity, that we could start making some progress on drafting some articulate resolutions. So that, before we get into any items of new business or any comments by the council members, we do have two subcommittees. Mr. Chow is here on the Anti-Asian Discrimination Subcommittee. I don't know if you have any comments or you want to have any report backs. I'm giving you the mic.
Thank you. We're going to finish it hopefully at the next meeting. I'm going to work on it this week, next week. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not sure, have you met with your subcommittee? I don't know if, okay, so yeah. So feel free through Carly to organize the subcommittee meeting, so we can work on that. I know I have some outreach by other CEC presidents regarding some issues regarding with regard to how we as parent leaders are managed, and I may follow up on that for our next meeting. And I'm not sure if there's anything on the special needs subcommittee. So Anne Marie's telling me that she does not have any subcommittee for special needs this term. Is there anyone that's interested in joining Anne Marie in forming a subcommittee?
Yes, you do. I thought everybody was on your subcommittee. That was the bylaws.
So something for us to think about between now and our next meeting. Of course, if you want to form a subcommittee for special needs, then I would ask that you reach out to me, Carly, or Anne Marie, and we can certainly form that subcommittee. I don't believe we have any other subcommittees at the time, correct? Okay, so is there any CEC member that would like to bring on any new item of business? Mr. Chow, anyone here present remotely that would like to bring on any new item of business? Okay, so if we have no new business to attend to and no report backs, I will, unless somebody wants to make any type of comment, this is your last opportunity before we entertain motions to adjourn our business meeting. Okay, do I hear any motions to adjourn the business meeting? Anne Marie makes the motion, Mr. Chow seconds the motion. So our meeting is adjourned. I want to thank everyone once again for showing up this evening. Mr. Altman, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for joining us. We definitely would like to fill up that empty seat. So if anyone on the council knows anyone that is interested as a parent leader, please let us know, let that person know. And I look forward to seeing you all either at the training on March 7th or actually on February 10th at the Touch Base with FACE. Okay, Juliana, you'll send out the Zoom meeting reminder, and hopefully we'll have our council members show up.
Yes, I will send that.
Okay, everyone have a good evening. And
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone.
Get them
Bye,
safe.
everyone.
Have a good night. Bye.
Have a good night.